Hello and welcome back to the Crime Reel. For today's true crime narration, we shall be looking at the horrific case of the Camden Ripper, arguably one of Britain's most violent serial killers. Unlike many of the people whose stories we narrate on the Crime Reel, Anthony John Hardy appeared to have had a very normal childhood. He was born on the 31st of May 1951 in Winshill and grew up in Burton-on-Trent, Staffordshire, with his three older siblings. His father was a coal miner and, determined to escape a relatively poor lifestyle, Anthony was hard-working and extremely driven in his studies. He earned a place at Imperial College, London, where he obtained an engineer's degree and met his future wife, a lady by the name of Judith Dwight. They married in 1972, then emigrated to Australia, and they had 4 children together, 3 sons and 1 daughter. However, their marriage broke down, and in 1982, Anthony attacked Judith, bludgeoning her with a frozen water bottle before attempting to drown her in the bath. He was arrested, but no charges were filed against him at that time. After this attack, he checked himself into a psychiatric clinic in Queensland, where he remained for several weeks. The couple returned to England. It is unclear whether they were separated at this stage, but 4 years later, Judith divorced him, retaining custody of their 4 children. Anthony began stalking his now ex-wife, which led to her filing a restraining order against him. His life continued to decline. He started to rely heavily on alcohol, became diabetic, and was treated in various psychiatric hospitals across London for alcohol abuse, drug-induced psychosis, depression, and bipolar disorder. He was homeless and either staying in various hostels across the capital city or sleeping rough. During this time, he received various convictions and 3 prison sentences for crimes such as theft and drunken disorderly conduct. He also spent time in psychiatric facilities after being sectioned under the Mental Health Act in 1995. On at least 4 separate occasions, he was investigated for sexual assault, but all charges were dropped due to there being insufficient evidence to bring a case against him. In 2000, Anthony moved into a 1-bedroom public housing flat on Royal College Street, Camden, northwest London. He was viewed as a strange man by his neighbours, and he made no effort to talk to any of them. In January 2002, one of Anthony's neighbours called the police. They had recently had an argument with Anthony over a leaking pipe, and then following this, their front door had been vandalised with offensive graffiti and acid had been poured through the letterbox. A trail of footprints led directly back to Anthony's front door. The police went to Anthony's flat, where he initially denied damaging the neighbour's door, but then changed his mind and admitted that it was in fact him. Whilst in the flat, the police noticed a locked door, and Anthony explained that he had sublet the room to a lady who was away at that time, and he did not have a key to this room. As the police proceeded to take Anthony away on the criminal damage charges, he asked if he could wear his jacket. They agreed, but stated that they needed to check it first. Inside the pockets, they found a key. Checking to see if this opened the locked door, they were shocked by what they found. Posed on the bed was the body of 38-year-old Sally White. Sally, a sex worker from London, was naked other than a towel that was covering her face and head. She had cuts and bruises on her head, and there was blood on the wall above her. A hoodie was found next to the bed with bloodstains that matched the wound on her head, indicating that she had been wearing it at the time of the injury. She also had a bite mark on her thigh. Anthony was arrested for murder. However, despite the circumstances in which Sally was found, as in naked and staged in a locked room, the forensic pathologist, Freddie Patel, concluded that she had died from coronary heart disease. The police were shocked, and, in an unusual move, requested a second post-mortem. Again, the same pathologist, Freddie Patel, stated that Sally had died of natural causes and that there were no marks of violence. As a result, at the inquest, the coroner stated that Sally had died of natural causes and that there had been no evidence of foul play or third-party intervention. It should be noted that the forensic pathologist Freddie Patel later came under scrutiny for many controversial findings during his career, and by 2012 was erased from the medical register by the General Medical Council, meaning that he could no longer practice medicine in the United Kingdom. As Sally's death was deemed to be due to natural causes, the police were forced to drop the murder charges, with Anthony only being charged with criminal damage to the neighbour's door. He pled guilty and was transferred to St Luke's Mental Health Hospital in Muswell Hill under Section 37 of the Mental Health Act. During his treatment here, he remained cooperative and engaged, and was often let out of the facility on day release. However, his consultant believed that he remained a danger to women, and in particular sex workers. As someone who had been detained under the Mental Health Act, Anthony had the right to appeal for his release, which he did in May 2002, but it was decided that he had not made sufficient progress and should continue to be held at the hospital. In November 2002, the opinion of the Forensic Mental Health Services was that he had a serious mental disorder and that there was strong evidence of risk of reoffending, and he was likely to cause others serious physical or psychological harm. However, this report remained unopened at the time of his appeal hearing, and it was determined that whilst he was mentally ill, he also had a natural human right to be treated in surroundings which will support and encourage his own efforts. As such, he was released from the facility on the 4th of November 2002. The Mental Health Trust did not advise the police that he had been released. Over the following 8 weeks, his mental health spiralled. Whilst he maintained his weekly psychiatric outpatient appointments at St Luke's, he also went to University College Hospital to get a prescription for Uprima, which is a tablet similar to Viagra. He spoke to sex workers in the King's Cross area, stating that he was a wealthy man looking for dominant sex. He started sneakily taking pictures of women in local bars, advertised for a female lodger, and began watching increasingly violent pornography. Soon after his release, he travelled to the Midlands for a massage, whereupon he violently sexually assaulted the lady, known only as Sarah. On the 30th of December 2002, the police received a call at around 9:45 a.m. A homeless man who had been scavenging for food in rubbish bins, which were behind a pub on Royal College Street, had found 2 human legs. All the rubbish collections in the area were immediately stopped until the bins could be checked. More body parts were found. A human torso, 2 arms and a foot were also discovered. It was quickly established that all of these body parts were female, but they belonged to at least 2 different women. The rubbish that had already been removed and taken to landfill was tracked down and searched. Local drains and the canal were checked, but after 36 hours, no further body parts had been found. Extensive house-to-house inquiries were underway, and one name kept getting mentioned to the police: Anthony Hardy. They visited Anthony's flat in the hope of talking to him, but when they arrived, the door was ajar and Anthony was nowhere to be found. The flat was extremely messy and there was a strong odour inside. The police found a package wrapped in black plastic and twine with a hacksaw and knives on the top. The package contained a second torso. A massive search for Anthony was underway. Hours of CCTV footage from the estate and nearby supermarkets was analysed. Additionally, hospitals in the area were alerted, as it was known that Anthony would need to collect his various medications. The police remained confident that he was still in London. Despite the heads and hands from the bodies still being missing, identification was made. 34-year-old Bridget McLennan was identified from her DNA, and 29-year-old Elizabeth Valad was identified from the unique serial number in her breast implants. Shortly before Christmas, Elizabeth was seen for the last time near King's Cross Station. She was with her boyfriend and left to buy a drink from a nearby shop. She never returned. Bridget was last seen on Christmas Eve when she visited Anthony's flat. Analysis of one of Anthony's supermarket loyalty cards led the police to CCTV footage of Anthony buying heavy-duty black sacks from a nearby Sainsbury's supermarket. CCTV was also found of Anthony casually disposing of a black sack, now known to contain body parts, in a rubbish bin. On the 2nd of January 2003, a now beardless Anthony was spotted by a retired policeman in a secluded smoking room at Great Ormond Street Hospital. The policeman alerted hospital security and the grounds were searched. Anthony was caught and arrested and taken to the police station. A forensic search of Anthony's flat followed, using luminol to highlight where blood had been present. The results were extensive, particularly in the bath, drag marks between the rooms, and in the area where it is presumed he dismembered the bodies. Neighbours would later state that they had heard drilling over the Christmas period and had seen Anthony disposing of bin bags. They had assumed he was doing some DIY and only realised the significance of what they had seen as news of the case circulated. During the police interviews, Anthony replied, "No comment," to every question that was asked of him. He never provided any explanation to any of the evidence shown to him. Some of that evidence included around 44 photographs that Anthony had taken that showed the two murdered women posed in pornographic positions whilst wearing a red devil mask and the same baseball cap that Anthony himself had been wearing at the time of the arrest. He was charged with Bridget and Elizabeth's murders as well as Sally's murder, which had originally been recorded as a death from natural causes. The case went to trial in November 2003, at which point Anthony changed his plea to guilty to all 3 counts of murder and he was sentenced to life in prison. He was later placed on the list of whole-life tariff prisoners, with a High Court judge stating that Anthony's was one of the exceptionally rare cases in which life should mean life. Despite extensive police efforts, Bridget and Elizabeth's heads and hands were never found. On the 26th of November 2020, Anthony died of sepsis at the age of 69. He has been linked to several other similar cases over the years, including Zoe Parker, a sex worker who was found dismembered in the River Thames in 2001, Sharon Hoare, who was killed in Fulham in 1991, Christine McGovern, who was murdered in Walthamstow in 1995, and 2 other murders that occurred in Nottinghamshire, which was a short distance from where Anthony grew up. However, his involvement in these cases has never been proven. That concludes today's story about Anthony Hardy, also known as the Camden Ripper. Please add any comments down below, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thanks very much for listening to The Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst. When Anthony was arrested, he definitely resisted arrest. He knocked out one of the arresting officers and he stabbed another whose eye was dislocated from its socket. There were brave police officers at work there. Oh, and despite this story, Camden is a great place to visit. I go there often. Goodbye.